Hello everyone, welcome back. No Die Classics is on the menu today. No arrows, thank you very much. Two games are on the agenda today. Both of them are absolute classics, and you will again understand why I lined these two games up together. The first one, in chronological order as well as in the order in this video, is going to be Rafael Vaganian versus Albert Planinc. Planinc was a lesser known Slovenian grandmaster who was really well known for his very inventive, aggressive and creative style. He was a really cool dude, and he played some remarkable games. It's actually very well worth typing in just Albert Planinc's best games, and you will find some remarkable stuff there. And I picked one of his games today for a number of reasons. Number one is because I still wanted to talk about the importance of development initiative, king stuck in the middle, these themes that we build most coaching sessions around when we start teaching kids, students, grown-up students, doesn't matter, people who start out with chess, about the most important principles. And then later on, when they start learning opening, strategy, whatnot, these basic principles often seem to get brushed under the rug and they stay there, and we tend to prefer other things because, yeah, somehow that just seems to take over. So what I'm trying to say is that even when you are playing your next level chess, when you take your next step, when you're learning your openings, these principles never fade away. They are always in the forefront of what you're doing, and if it's not, then that's what's going to happen to you. What happened here to Vaganian, who is actually a very good player, very strong grandmaster from Armenia, several times. I think he was actually in the Olympic champion team. A very established, very well-known grandmaster. He's playing as white. So we are playing a stock standard opening, and here white embarks on this journey with knight b d5, which is designed to give a check and at the same time kick out the bishop in a way that the knight can take back on it. In positional terms, it is fully sound. The only downside of it is that after 8 moves of chess, and I will stop on black's moves so that we are clearly seeing what's going on here, white has played 1, 2, 3, 4 moves with the same piece. Now that should not happen. Am I saying that this position is bad for white? No, I'm not, but I'm definitely hinting that if something goes south here for white, then we already know a very logical explanation behind why things may have gone the way they have. Definitely it's a problem for black not to have the 2 bishops, but now he has got a massive lead in development, and he's about to transition that into a humongous space advantage in the center. So white must react. He played bishop g5. I think that now on d4, knight e4 is okay, because after queen check, either b4 or bishop d2 seem to do the trick, and yeah, he would be doing okay. And Planinc's objective, I think, from this point on was to open up the position rather than to close it anyway. So he played h6, provoking white into grabbing the pawn on d5, and really not much else is to be done. I guess if e3, then rook d8 threatening d4 is quite annoying to deal with. So yeah, it sort of makes sense to take the pawn and then take the pawn again. Once again, if they play the more humble e3, either knight c6 d4 or rook d8 d4, at least equal. At least is equal for black. So queen took on d5, and here we go, we have arrived at one of the most important position in my opinion in this game, because regardless of what the objective assessment of this position is, I would 100% pick black to play with this position with, and this is the kind of thinking that I'm trying to teach to my students too. Do not hesitate to pick initiative over material. It's way easier to play, it's way more dynamic, it follows the principles of chess that I believe are the most important ones, and yeah, it is just what I consider to be the right way to go. Please note how on the king side all white can show is a lack of the knight on g1, which will make castling easier that way, but other than that, it feels like he hasn't played a single move on the king side, which is a big issue, because after rook d8, queen f3, and queen b6, black is constantly attacking white pieces so that white can't catch up in development, and all it takes for me is 2 moves and I'm fully done with development, ready to strike, whereas white is really far away. So white had to play here a fair few very accurate and only moves in order to stay afloat, starting with rook d1, trading off the well developed black pieces, and after rook takes knight c6. Now the development advantage, especially if you look at it now, is not as striking, because now I also have all my dudes back at home. Having said that, it's crystal clear to see that their development is still way more obvious and way easier than the white side of the business. So knight c6, queen e3. That was actually the first inaccuracy in the game. Queen c3 was proposed by the machine, followed by e3 and bishop e2 and then castle. Even in this case, bishop random followed by rook c8 or rook d8 even seems to be putting on a lot of pressure, but there is definitely no crystal clear advantage to black to speak of. After queen e3, however, things are getting a little bit out of the way, because the problem now is that I can't develop with e3. And if I can't do that, then it will be very problematic for white to complete development on the king side. What white was banking on was this check, which has created a pin on the back rank onto the rook. Having said that, and this is how classics build on top of each other, I already told you in one of the previous episodes that it's a very common motive that when there is a queen on the back rank, you sack both of the rooks in order to accelerate development, and then you strike with the pieces that are out, whilst the white queen is way out of business and is unable to help the defense. Now obviously there are no 2 rooks to sack, but there is one here that really wants to get out, or rather the bishop really wants to get out somewhere. Any of these squares would do, in order to add extra attackers to this equation. So after e3, it was somewhat self-explanatory to play knight c2. King d2 was forced, and now bishop f5, a stunning attacking move, hardly surprising mind you, but still a very nice stroke. The idea is, of course, that after takes, we are going to attack the king with all of our existing pieces, and white doesn't have a choice, because going back would just enhance this attack by allowing the rook to enter the fray too. So the rook had to be captured, check. King went back, and now knight a1. A stunningly beautiful and very unexpected move. The concept is very simple. He just wants to give a tiny little checkmate here. And this is actually rather difficult to defend, because queen b7, which was the text, falls for a beautiful finish. The only way for white to stay in the game would have been bishop c4, but even here after queen c5, white loses the exchange here, and after a sequence of moves like knight c3, queen takes, probably queen takes back, knight check, queen check, looks like it's finishing the business. So white is in big trouble anyway here, but the finish was actually remarkably stunning. Queen takes b7, and after queen c7 check, white had to throw in the towel, because queen takes c7 is strongly met by the proposed knight b3 threat, which is a beautiful finish to a lovely game. So what is there to learn from this game? Basically, that material is always something that you can and should willingly chuck in as soon as you sniff some sort of initiative, some sort of attack. It is crystal clear that here black has got significant play for the sacrifice material, and also just based on gut feeling, when you see this on your opponent's side, you know that you are doing something right, even if it costs material. And many times I do see this with my students, that they go in a position like this and they go like, oh, this is hanging. because of the threatened sequence of take, 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 take. And they don't look beyond. Their only way of assessing position is counting the pieces of wood on the board. And it is very short-sighted, but not only is it short-sighted, but very harmful, because material is never the first go-to when you assess positions. The first thing is always king safety. And even after that, you can argue whether dynamic features such as development, central control should be considered before material. Obviously, when the material discrepancy is so huge, let's say that my queen was not on the board, then we can't talk about initiative and all the likes. But when it's like this, then these things need to be evaluated together. And these games teach you how to put the more important, or the at least equally important features into this equation and consider dynamic features, attack, initiative, development, pieces coming out with tempo, obvious moves ready to be played, whereas the opponent doesn't seem to have a crystal clear way to continue the game, and so on. Planinc was an absolute boss of this, and in this game he just pulled off a perfect attack, and it just went so smoothly. Like the whole entire game is just one smooth flow of attack. The black pieces just continuously coming out one after another, chasing the white king. And again, a testament to black's brilliance is this: all white pieces on the back rank with the exception of the queen, which was basically the main reason of the white's downfall, because it went on this very long journey, whilst black has completed development and finished the attack. Now I can guarantee you that many famous players would know this game, would know the players. So if I set up this position to any of our current top 20 grandmasters, there is a very good chance that not only would they be able to solve it within seconds, but they would be able to name the players. One of them would be undoubtedly one of my favorite current grandmasters, Aronian, who played a game approximately 30 years later against Ivan Sokolov, a very well established, coincidentally also Slovenian, if I'm not mistaken. No, yeah, sorry, stand corrected. I think Sokolov is Bosnian, yes. Former Yugoslavian, but I prefer not to use that term because some of them would probably consider it offensive. So yes, similar area and a different class of grandmaster altogether. Sokolov, I think, may have been top 10 at one stage of his career. He wrote an amazing book that I think I have already spoken about on this channel, called Winning Chess Middle Games, which is really a book about pawn structures and how different pawn structures should be played. Anyhow, a classic grandmaster in the sense that he really plays along classical values. However, in this game, something didn't quite go his way. Please note again how aggressively black is playing for things like attacking the center, initiative, quick development, and basically ignoring all other aspects of the position. So c5, brilliant, takes h6, getting rid of with the pin. Please note that d4 here doesn't win a piece because of a3, b4. So h6, bishop h4, g5. Now again, this is a position where I would like to pause for a second, because again, reflecting on my own coaching practice, many of my students would play. I didn't want to play g5 because it weakens the king side. I have nowhere to castle. That is a consideration that could be meaningful if we were planning for long term here, but when we are deciding whether to play g5 here or not, the short term dynamics are way more important than the long term negative effects. By g5 we eliminated a pin, we win a tempo, and we allow ourselves to plant a knight on e4, which then can be followed up by queen f6 and knight c6. So the argument that I have nowhere to castle, and even if I do, it can be attacked here easily, is perfectly irrelevant, because it's very crystal clear that the initiative is on black's side. And when you have the initiative, it's by default means that you can't get attacked because you are attacking. And indeed, knight c6, queen f6, bishop f5 are such powerful moves coming out very obviously that it way overweighs the importance of this somewhat weakening move, not to mention the fact that there is no one to say that we can't castle here should the need arise. Okay, bishop takes b8. It is a very ugly move, but it is still okay, and it's a theoretical move too. In fact, we still have been following theory here for a while. We'll be following theory for a while, but I really do like the way how black's initiative develops here. Knight takes c3, and again, speaking of the pattern recognition and knowing the tactics, and I think you already understand why I linked these two games together in this episode, look at white's kingside. Not a single piece has been moved. I am absolutely 100% certain that Aronian had flashbacks from previous classic examples where this happened, and he already, I think, knew that something was going to happen, something really good. Now, having said that, even this is theory. And here, if Sokolov had played the theoretical e3, the position would have remained roughly in balance, because now it is actually not that easy for black to exploit the development advantage due to the fact that the bishop is actually under attack. So I can't really move the knight away, because queen takes a5 is a decent enough response to everything. I don't know whether Sokolov has forgotten theory here, or he thought that he has found an improvement on e3, but he played b4, which really does look like he's asking for trouble big time, because what it does is that it exposes this rook on the diagonal and makes a lot of dark squares very weak on the diagonal too. Admittedly, it attacks the bishop, but that's when the who cares factor kicks in really hardcore. As you will see, this bishop is not gonna move anymore in this game. So what's happening from here on is that basically Aronian is basically going in for the kill as hard as possible. Not the fully developed army, whereas this one piece out. That's it. There is no way that one can survive a position like this, and it doesn't matter whether the person who breaks the basic principles of chess, no development, no central control, nothing at all, whether they are an 1100 player on Lichess who play a game once a month, or it's a 2660 or 2680 grandmaster, former world champion candidate, your fate is going to be the same if you follow bad moves. And likewise, there are obvious moves in chess positions, and I like to say that it's impossible that when my student plays a move like this, I go like, well done, mate, brilliant. Magnus Carlsen could not come up with a better move than that. It attacks the queen, it opens up a diagonal, it just brings the whole attack together. Don't ever second guess yourself on a move like this. It has to be correct. Or probably a better example of that is bishop f5. It develops a piece, with a tempo, it attacks the queen, it controls the center. Impossible to find a better move than that. Let's see how the finish off happened. Queen c1, and again, typical example of how you look at a position. If I was black here, and I can guarantee you that Aronian probably didn't thought about along same values and concepts too, I wouldn't even give credit to this bishop hanging here to such extent that I would consider moving it. The only possible moves I would be looking at here are moves that further develop the position, that create further threats. And rook c8 fits the bill perfectly well, because it brings in a new attacker and it threatens with rook takes c5. So for the argument's sake, takes rook takes c5, and white can comfortably resign because he can't move his queen in a way that would cover the c3 square, which means that queen c3 check is going to decide the game in the next move. And because of the very annoying pin on this diagonal, rook takes c5 is essentially unstoppable. Now, credit to Sokolov, he tried to hang in there as best as he possibly could. He played a very clever and creative rook a2. And when I say clever and creative, still please note it's dead lost. But once again, you can just resign here, or you can try to do something like this, which is quite cool and would still divert some players from continuing this attack in a ferocious and aggressive style. Because now there are, again, black piece is under attack. It's actually only the a5 bishop, and there's a queen trade on, and if the queen was to move, then the h8 rook would drop with a check. That sounds like another motive that we may have seen just then. So please, again, have a look at the king side. No pieces have moved at all. and then Aronian goes like, no thank you, queen trade, be my guest to take my rook. Queen c6 has created a mate in 1 threat, 2, sorry. And after queen e5 check, king d8 check, and then king d7. Please note the subtle king d8 here. King d7 would have been horrid on account of check. King d8, allowing the rook to be taken with a check, but then playing king d7, and now white is unable to give a check, and very simply he's getting mated. Rook c1 is unstoppable. It is a stunningly beautiful example of basically developing and taking an idea that you saw in the previous game to a next level where the position was way more complex, it had way more to do with theory, and yeah, there were a few extra elements, but the basics, the outline, the skeleton of the two games are identical. Undeveloped kingside, beautifully harmoniously developed black army, very aggressively going on for the hunt. For the record, the finish could have been e3, rook c1 check, king here, check here to create a self block on f3, no matter whether it's the knight or the pawn, and then queen c4 checkmate. Absolutely stunning and beautiful chess. And again, I intentionally chose 2 games featuring the same thing to show you that top class grandmasters go down quite well, not often, but every now and then, when they don't follow basic principles, but also to show you that this is how ideas develop, and this is how the best players of the world like Aronian and his chess is still based on crystal clear basic principles that anyone should learn at the early stage when they start learning chess and how to play proper chess. So I hope that you guys like these 2 games. I highly recommend you to analyze through these games again if there were questions or unanswered lines or variations there for you left in. But I think overall I've managed to paint a fairly good picture about initiative and development and how it's done in beautiful games. And yeah, I will be back with more of these lovely examples soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.